You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. We are kicking off Season 3. Julian and I are back with Rod Serling and some hefty recognition in Season 3. But Julian, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm doing great. I can't believe we've made it to Season 3. We're almost halfway through the Twilight Zone. What a trip it's been.
Yeah, this is amazing. This has been... there's been some biggies. There's been some... debate over some of the episodes. There's been some classics that I think you and I have agreed or disagreed on. But I looked through the listing, and Season 3 looks pretty. It's pretty hefty for some of those classics. Yeah, we're going to be starting off with one thing I'm going to say is I quickly just ran through some of the episodes. There's a lot of episodes in this season with I know your face. We've had it before, but it seems to be again there's still that thing of we're going to get to episode 1 in a minute, and again it took me like 2 minutes before I was like, I know these people, and I recognise them, and so it was there's a lot of that. So I'm going to try and build that in a little bit of I know your face. But let's start. We are starting with episode 1 of season 3. This is confusing because it's episode 1 of season 3. It's called 2. Quick overview. This is a future, or is it the past? I do like this intro by Rod Serling. It's the future or the past or some other place. There's been a massive war, and as is often the case, they like to show these deserted streets with everything that's going on, and we find there are 2 combatants, 2 soldiers from either side of this war, a male and a female, a man and a woman. One, a gruff survivor from the home, I'll say the home team really, but the defense team, and the other one, a female soldier from the invading army, and they come across each other in this deserted street, and then form somewhat of a relationship. But we'll get into that moment. So, Julian, what were your thoughts then on 2 as we start off?
Yeah, I've seen this before, and I remember it very well. It can be maybe a little slow, but it reminds me of sort of 2 themes that Serling loves to use. One is the sort of vacant or abandoned landscape, which we've seen from the very beginning.
Yes.
And the other is the sort of like anti-war, war leaves everybody devastated, anti-nuclear, thing. And those 2 managed to combine here, I think, very successfully.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is an interesting one because it's sort of it does a few things differently that I was a bit not surprised about, but I think sort of the way it's approached is interesting. So you usually this idea of it was going to be 2 combatants of a war, like it usually be 2 men or sort of thing, but to be introduced to the woman first, and she's in uniform and all this other stuff, and she's competent, we see her that she's able to wield weapons and look after herself throughout all this, is really interesting. This is obviously set up to form a relationship later, but I was quite interested that we were introduced to like the woman first, and her approach to things, she sort of, there was a real balance in this. I was quite surprised for, this is like 61, 62 now, isn't it? She reckoned she goes to like a street, there's a smashed in store window, and there's these dresses and stuff there, and there's like a recognition of like, they're pretty, but like she's not rushing to it because she realizes there's an impracticality to it as well. So it's sort of like stick with the uniform. So I kind of like this idea of sort of like they're not just going to have tropes. It's they're going to be quite sensible with some of the way they approach these characters.
Yeah, and I think also it impresses me how silent that first half is. I mean, I always wonder, like, what does the script look like? What was the script for this? 5 pages? I mean, you can describe their actions, but there's very, very little dialogue. And that works very well. I mean, I think it comes off as very impressive, and as you say, it sort of like avoids those cliches, and we have that sort of shift of point of view where he becomes the main character, but we've sort of started with the girl.
Yeah, I like you said about the silence. I can imagine this sort of being like, because I don't think, was this written by Rod Serling? No, created by Montgomery Pittman. But I can imagine them being on site, and it was directed by Montgomery Pittman as well. So if he's written it and directed it, I can imagine like the first scenes are just like, right, here's what I want. I'm just going to film them. Like, I have a structure. Here's what we've got on set. Do this. Like, we know sort of what we've got to do. Because the script for this could have been half a page. Like, we're going to do this bit, then we'll do that bit, then we'll do that bit. So yeah, it's not until they start to talk and they have some form of interaction actually that they start to, because it's almost like keynotes, aren't there, between it? It's like how the engagement between these two people sort of rolls out. Like there are certain things, and when they sort of they first meet, and there's that sort of like it's not because it doesn't go straight to conflict, because I think they're both war weary, which I think is also good as well. Like they're sort of like they're on guard, but like weary of everything that's gone on. So I like the fact that it doesn't instantly go to combat straight away. In like a sort of, again, I think the temptation would be to have either a shootout or a standoff straight away. It doesn't sort of go there, especially because the male sort of comes in as a bit like, ugh, I'm just going to go do this. I'm going to go have a wash and a shave, and I'm going to do whatever. So yeah, no, I like that whole sort of section, and the way they're sort of like, that weariness comes off it, that ominousness, but like a weariness. Because I just want to throw in the cast. This is the first of those. I know your face, and so instantly I was like, oh, that's Charles Bronson. No, it's not. Yes, it is. And then I had to check, and it is. It is a young Charles Bronson. And it's also Elizabeth Montgomery, who a year later would join I Dream of Jeannie as Jeannie. She's a very, very attractive woman. Because that's what I was going through. I was like, my God, like, yeah, she's really attractive. But like Charles Bronson is just like that laconic sort of like, I'm not a big fan of Bronson, especially because I think I know his later work more. But he's actually really good in this. Like he plays it really well in he's not Oscar winning, but I kind of like his presence.
Oh. Yeah, and I think it suits the role. What's interesting is that you were talking about how the directing choices and the plot doesn't play into gender stereotypes. The casting and mannerisms of the two of them, on the other hand, certainly does. Yes. Bronson doesn't even look at her. He'll turn and just do his thing and seem blithely unconcerned. He's acting very Bronson-like. And she, as you point out, I mean, even when she's roughed up at the beginning, by which I mean she's got debris on her, she's, in, raggedy uniform, she still looks beautiful. So there is that sort of, stereotype in the casting there. And he, although he seems more the pacifist, he is clearly the one who recognizes more that none of our sides, none of our values mean anything now. And he articulates that to her. She's struggling to get there over the course of the episode. But despite that, he is such and it kind of works for the episode because he's such a macho guy with this super macho demeanor that it almost, that blithe attitude toward her sort of works for the idea that he doesn't care about, the being concerned or the old values.
Well, because I think one of the things that's noted is she's the first one to pick up a weapon. Like she picks up a knife and then she attacks him with a pot and some other stuff as well. Like he walks in and she's the one that sort of throws things at him. And he's like, all right, I'm sort of done with this. Because what I feel is there's a history, like you said, that machoism. Like he is that sort of because you see him shirtless later on. Like obviously Bronson's always been, very athletic. He's always been known for that sort of thing. So he's ripped, like, he's sort of, and so he is this soldier. And like, you can, when she sees the propaganda images of the soldiers for this, the Bronson Sides army, like Bronson fits into that perfectly. Like he is almost like, that's what the ideal soldier would be. And for him to have been sort of like, to be almost like, he's not quite anti-war, but he's almost like he's just done with it. He's like, I'm done with this shit. Like I'm it's played out for me. He this is, like I say, is it 62? This one was just 63 by this point.
Still 61.
Oh, still 61. There you go. So one of the things I would say is this is like 2 years before, and I know there's been spaghetti westerns before, but this is 2 years before Eastwood becomes the man with no name, and does very similar stuff. And Bronson's doing it here. That that sort of like, there's one point where she shoots at him, and he sort of like, he just gets up and just like walks off. And he's just like, all right, if you don't want to work together, I can do it on my own. There's no combat. There's no there's like a laconic, like coolness about it, where he's just like, all right, well, I'll just do my thing then, and walks off. And that feels very much of sort of like, it would come later. Everyone sort of, for me, I was thinking, oh, this feels like the kind of thing that Eastwood would establish later on, but
he's like a later tough guy kind of thing. Yeah, that shooting scene is very interesting. I mean, and what precedes it as well with those propaganda posters. I thought that's probably the most fascinating part of the episode. Earlier they stumble upon the remains of bodies with guns, and they both grab them and name them at each other, these rifles. And you get the sense that it's just because they think the other one is going to shoot, right? Or at least in his case. And then later, and she sees these propaganda posters, and we're very conscious of the one directly behind her of images of her team, right, of her side being captured, and she works her way up to that, and I love the idea that personalization, that the propaganda images still have an effect on her, that's what sort of like boils her blood, and we all can imagine that, right? Like, this is a poster of like, there's the Taliban taking an American GI hostage. It's like, we're gonna get them. It's hard not to feel that, especially when it's personalized. So in the middle of this anti-war episode, it does acknowledge the effectiveness of propaganda, and that people can backslide. And she actually shoots him. I mean, you don't know that it's a laser gun until he fires, and then you get the sort of Robbie the Robot, sound
pew
effect.
pew.
Right, it's a little off-putting, but she's actually hit him. He's got a little like burn mark on his cheek from a sort of, I guess, a glancing blow.
And that's it. You're right, because she hits at him, and he rolls behind like a cart, and she hits the cart as well. So she's not incompetent. Like, she is a soldier. And that's when he sort of just gets up and just like, I'm done with this shit. Like, I'm like, and he finds a like a somewhere to stay, and he's got some like jarred peaches or whatever, sort of like, he's ready to just sort of be like, but this is the final bit that I find quite fascinating in this episode is let's say we see him shirtless, like he disrobes from his uniform and ends up putting like a cravat and a jacket, basically, like a suit jacket or something. And it's this sort of like step back towards, I'm going to remove this military garb and move back to the sort of like civilian, towards this sort of like, the regular. And then she pops up, and she's obviously seen this dress, and it's done quite well. You just see her head pop up, and you can see she's carrying a rifle. Like, you see she's still got the rifle. And he confronts her and says, look, I'm not, either join me or don't. Like, I don't care, sort of thing. But when she steps out, she's wearing the dress from before. And it's not because, again, instantly, it's not because she thinks it's pretty. It's not because of a I look pretty kind of thing. It's a complete acknowledgement of, I have removed my uniform as well. And and now we are just two people, basically trying to get on and survive in this messed up world. And so I really like that.
Yeah, I like it too. Although I do think the emphasis on the uniforms and on the role of dress in this kind of morality play is a little heavy-handed.
I mean, yeah,
it works. I agree with you. It works. I mean, I do kind of love this episode, but I also sort of right away I think it's been 5 years. You're still wearing your uniform. Like, how many bowel movements have you had on this uniform? I mean, what? How have you kept this? Yeah, it's rags, but I mean, what are you doing to clean this? Surely you found some other clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're raiding canned goods. I mean, I'm sure the dress shop was not the first time they found any fabric in the shape of a human body.
Yes. No, yeah, you are right. That is true. I mean, but even one of the things I thought was interesting is, like you say about the uniform. Like we should highlight, she's wearing a dress or a skirt with her uniform, so they've still feminized the uniform for her. So it's not quite away from all the gender stereotypes. But you're right, it is a little heavy-handed.
Well, I mean, it is the 1960s. This is the decade where we can project a utopian future in which blacks and whites will get along, but the chicks are still going to wear skin-tight outfits on the Enterprise.
She's still gonna wear a miniskirt.
Yeah. It's the 60s.
The one thing I find really disturbing about this episode is the final sort of shot. So they're obviously walking off together, but she's the grin that she breaks into is really, I don't know whether it's sinister or whatever, but that's the bit to me that I was like, oh, that's a step too far. Don't leave that and have them just walk off. Would have sort of been a much nicer ending, I think.
Yeah, I think it's overdone. I agree with you, and I think it's too quick, right? Like, we know they never say, to the episode's credit, I love you, right? They don't suddenly do that, but she's come to kind of apologize, and this is the start of a beautiful friendship or something, right? But it's clear this is going to be romantic by the ending, and it just wants to wrap it up with a bow, and it just makes that bow with that grin. It's all just a little too fake, a little too pat.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Better versions of this will be done down the line, I think, with even things like The Walking Dead, and they'll have returned to this idea. But I think this episode's good as an opener for the season. I really enjoyed this episode.
I like it quite a bit myself, and I think it compares favorably to a lot of other sort of anti-war episodes and sort of mysterious disappearances kind of episodes where they're all alone. I do like that vibe, but sometimes it doesn't really have a point, or it's just that vibe is for the sake of that vibe. And here, I like that it's tied into the anti-war thing. So, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good solid opener. I think, like I say, so it works well, and I was pleased for that. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Good. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We've started season 3. We'll be carrying on. But if you like what we're doing, leave a review and check out our Patreon to learn more. But for now, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next episode.